Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Hopefully, you are watching this sometime either during week 9 or prior. Maybe you checked it out or read around the end of week 8 or over the weekend. And you're not watching this week 10, the day before or later today when we have class, right? So, hopefully, this is not something that you're checking out a little bit later. Really, whenever you're learning something new, it's kind of important that you have time to let it sink in and get some sleep in between. That's actually how we commit things to memory. It's a very important part of learning, so make sure that you're making time for that. If you are not doing that, there's really no way for me to know. So I guess it doesn't really matter if you're just kind of trying to get through the quarter. Why am I blurry? That is weird. I think that's better. I don't know, that was weird. Anyway, let's go ahead and cover just a few things on Canvas before we go on to the Unreal demonstration and the introduction and the overviews of those things. So we'll mosey right on over to our Canvas. Now, normally I put this kind of thing at the top, but before we get started on everything, I would really like for you to take a quick look at my extra credit instructor evaluations module here. If you could please go ahead and evaluate me, I would deeply appreciate it. Something that you should know for all of the evaluations that happen in all of your classes is that they are done completely anonymously. We don't really see what is even said, and we never know who says what, but we don't know what is said about us until after our final grades have been submitted and we're no longer your teachers anymore. So you are free to be candid and to tell the truth and without any kind of fear of any sort of reaction or retaliation from your instructors when we do submit your grades. I will say, though, that if you ever have a kind of problematic instructor or someone that you really feel should probably be maybe looked at a little bit more carefully by their division and their supervisors, this is the best way to do that. Basically, we have people evaluate us and review our evals, and so, whatever is said here gets just passed right on up to our supervisors. It doesn't stop with us. We have people who are hold us accountable to, whether or not we're teaching you what we should be and making sure that we're making accessibility for you. At least that's something that I work towards. I know not all teachers do that, but if you ever feel that you would like to see some change in the classroom, doing instructor evaluations is one of the best ways that you can do that, at least for future students that are going to be coming through those classrooms, right? Okay, so how I have it set up, though, what I do need you to know that I don't want you to submit to me any of the content that you do say, right? To get extra credit for doing this with me, all you have to do is submit the confirmation that you did an eval. Don't worry about showing me what you say. I don't want to know what you say. Don't do that. Just show me that you confirmed it. And if you do that, you will get 5 points extra credit. This assignment is worth 0, meaning if you don't do it, you get a 0. This affects your grade not at all. But if you do it and you get 5 points, that gets added to your grade without adding any more grade debt to it. It's just free points, right? So if you want a little extra credit, please go ahead and do that for me. It doesn't even matter what you say. I won't know it anyway. And yes, that means you could totally destroy me in this eval and you'll still get extra credit. But if it would be nice if you didn't destroy me. That hurts my heart. But I do want to hear the truth from you, so please feel free to tell me whatever it is that you need me to know to be a better teacher. Okay? Appreciate ya. What's next? Let's go back to the Canvas homepage. All right. Let's go ahead and scroll on down. There we go. We're past narrative design. Hopefully you guys are having a good time with that. And now we're back. We're getting started on our final. Now, before we go over Unreal, I'd like to share with you the final overview. And that is so that some of you early birds that are here thinking about this will give yourself enough time to tackle the design challenge as it was intended. I think that, for the record, doing this assignment is not nearly as difficult as I think it could be, right? But if you expand on your designs, this is when things get kind of hard. And this is when things get kind of overwhelming. And I know earlier today, which was when we had class last, and I just saw you guys a little while ago, some folks were telling me that they're feeling burnt out, and this isn't the only class that I'm hearing that from. So I'm going to come to the table with this, with that sort of lens about how you don't have to really do the hard mode on this assignment. I will walk you through what it needs to get the minimum and still get a passing grade, and like a good grade for that matter. And then I'm going to talk about the challenges that ordinarily, if I had more time with you and we had done this earlier in the quarter like intended, I would have hoped for you to do. So I'm going to kind of come at both angles with this, because I do believe that some of you are really ready for that, and some of you are not yet and want to be, and some of you are not interested in that, right? So I'm trying to kind of frame this final to accommodate any stage where you might be mentally with that and still be able to get through this class. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the final without further ado. A final overview, right? Okay. So, the bottom line is that if you want a passing grade, like a decent grade, copy what I do, but that's not the design of the assignment. It will get you through finishing and accomplishing each piece that I'm trying to do, and if you put it through the same gauntlet, you will still get that same credit. But originally, the idea was that you do not make at all the same puzzle as me. You are not going to get a 0 in this case, because you just don't have as much time to really iterate on this. Let's see. I'll kind of remove that whole statement. Now, originally, that was kind of how I had this planned, right? Was that you weren't going to make the same puzzle that I make. I actually will allow for you to do that here, and doing that is the behavioralist approach. That is, I'm just going to click the buttons you want me to click. I'm going to submit what you want me to submit. I'm going to do the tasks and get through this. That's not a great learning model in creative learning that is less cognitive focused and more behavioral, in that I want you to do things, not I want you to understand things. Now, for those of you that are interested in the understanding part of this, and that's sort of the next level of cognitive, like brain juice, that's the step up in difficulty, is that you're solving a unique problem of design, how you want to solve it, telling your own story, and doing your own goal. And that is the original goal of this assignment. So to be clear, you may do either for the final. I'm kind of going gentle this quarter, what with, the closures that we've had and the extra time we took on the narrative design. I'm allowing for that option for people. But to those of you that are here to study game design and to practice it, don't just copy my approach. Don't copy what I do. And I mean that to the explicit of telling the same story, doing the same enemy, and doing the same layout. All of that is what I mean. Now, it's not to say, though, that everybody here isn't going to be gated in our assignment here. Meaning, I'm going to give you a very specific mechanic. You may implement that mechanic and the mechanics I give you and show you in not today's exercise, but when we get back the following week, I'll show you how to do those. You are going to create sort of your own way of using those exact models, though not 3D models, but triggers and the Tyrant AI mechanic. Now, those you do have to do. Now, some of you are going to have but I have ideas. I want to do this. And I love that for you. You may do that on your time in your study. But for this, I'm keeping you gated here because that's part of the design challenge. Most of the time out there when you're building work for industry, you don't actually get to choose a lot of extra mechanic. In fact, depending on what level you're working on this, you don't at all, really. You as explorers, as people who are kind of exploring this space and finding out these tools, you certainly may, but not in this assignment, because I really want to make sure that you get the few things that we talk about here clearly understood for the next class, rather than go into explorative mode, try something new for a final, which is a very big grade, and have these real world consequences because we kind of went off the rails and you really wanted to try to create this usually more complex system than you realize it's going to be, especially when you're not used to doing this. Making games is actually quite hard. Doing digital games especially is very difficult. It requires a lot of practice. And so we're going to kind of keep it simple for our final for the sake of a grade and for the sake of your sanity. A lot of you guys are busy. But that's not to say, though, that you don't have a lot of room to build something kind of big and what I would consider pretty cool. So without further ado, you are going to build a level in Unreal 5.4. You are going to use the tools that I show you throughout the rest of this quarter to create a level using a tyrant mechanic and the triggers. You will have a win-loss condition, whatever you would like that to be. And you will put it through the iterative design principles that we've been talking about all quarter, which is make the thing, make somebody play the thing, observe what they do, and then iterate and improve on that design. I have it here said as the Tyrant Neho, but you'll see when we get back what I really mean with that. You will actually be able to make any kind of tyrant you want. It will need to be a third-person player controller, not first, not overview, not 2.5D, third person, and I should learn to spell, that spells this third person wrong. And you'll have to have a goal, which is the win condition, really. I mean, that kind of comes into play when you have a win-loss condition. You will have a document. It is not going to be enormous, but you're going to include the brief description of the play mechanic, the description of your design and the goal of the design. It should answer the question, what do I need to do to complete your level? And then you will do a design challenge statement where you share a design challenge you came across, which is usually, I needed to figure out how to get the player to do X, Y, and Z. When I attempted, they did R. So I had to change something to sort of get them to do something else, right? And that would be an example, a very crude example of what a design challenge that you discovered and how you fixed it, right? You'll have lots of time to work on this. We're in week 9 and you've got 10, 11, and 12 to finish it. Now, you will conduct at least 2 different playtests with 2 different people. Take playtest notes, and your playtest notes should cover at least 3 out of the 4 of what I have bullet pointed here. The questions that you've asked them, problems that you discovered, priorities, if you created a priority list, and any ideas for those solutions. Have fun. Remember, a design challenge here is to try to make it fun. What is uniquely challenging or interesting about this level? Did you find it difficult or too easy, and how did you approach that challenge? You're not going to fail if it's not fun. But I can tell you right now, certain designs are immediately not allowed. And what those are, we'll talk about them when we get back to when we're in person or when we're meeting in face-to-face here. You are not allowed to make a maze. You cannot make a maze the way a mouse looks for cheese in a maze. You're not allowed to make that. And you're not allowed to make a hallway where it's just beginning to end, walk from here to there, and that's the goal. You can understand the in-between is really where the good stuff lives, right? 1 is too difficult. And it's linear without knowing it, is that there's only wrong answers until you get to the right answer. And usually people like to play multiple right answers, some more interesting than others. And so spaces that feel like mazes only have maybe a couple of dead ends, not all dead ends except for 1. Linear hallways with only a hallway, this is pretty terrible for the opposite reason, and that it's too easy. I just walk from here to there. There was nothing fun about it and nothing particularly interesting. So those 2 designs are not allowed. They are immediately off the table. However, I am curious to hear some of your ideas and how you think that you could probably make something like this fun. Now, do I have to make the same level you make? No, you do not. I will allow it. You may, if you're just trying to get through this class. And you can follow along and just put the thing together, get it play tested, and then still iterate on the design on your own without having to start from square 1 or 0, depending on where you are in that process. Does it have to be scary? It does not have to be scary. I just have a bit of an affinity for horror, so I am playing around with the genre a little bit for this assignment. but it does not have to be scary. It can be fun. It can be silly. The tyrant doesn't even have to be an enemy. It doesn't have to kill you. It does have to follow you. Maybe you want it to, maybe you need to guide it through an area through movement, but there will be opportunities to play with that, right? So we'll talk about your ideas as we get closer to implementing them. Okay. Now that is the final that you'll be doing, Resident Neho, and I will reveal the level that I had designed and then show you how to do it when we get back. But for now and for today, there are certain things that I need to ensure that you have been able to accomplish. So let's head back to our Canvas page. All right, so what do you need to have done before I see you next? Hopefully not tomorrow. You've got more time. Now, we are going to have some checkpoints and check-ins, and ordinarily I would have like a fresh assignment for you every week here for our check-ins, but for this time it's going to be the same check-in every week. Okay, there we go. Okay, so for this week, right, this is what I'm going to have you share with me before we get back. This part here, week 9, is actually due before we meet in week 10, which would be, just to be clear, I want to make sure, week 9, we would have met on the 5th. This is due before the 12th, right? Well, I'll actually write in the due date here. Due March 11th. 2, 3, 11. This part, just the week 9 prompt. The other stuff will be due every following week to follow it. Okay? Okay, so what I'm going to expect you to have done, right? You will have gained access to Unreal. Are you going to finish saving? That's concerning me. Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Okay. By the time we come back, you will have gained access to Unreal 5. Now, that could be that you've downloaded Unreal 5 and you've installed it on your home working station, and you may do all of this at home if you were able to successfully manage that. Otherwise, you may gain access to this at the school in the N207 computer lab using the computer code to the computer lab, which you can find right up here at the top where it covers the DMA program information. Right, meow. Boop, 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 boop. Right here. Here's the code. That is the code 685502. Use this code to get into the N207 computer lab that have Unreal that you may use. Okay? All right. Now, that is old. I don't know why that keeps coming up. This is what it is. All right. Right here, you will gain access to those resources, or you'll download them from home and work from home. That's fine too. And you're going to begin creating your first Unreal level. I will not have you have any kind of completion expectation of your level. You may just have it started. It should be totally incomplete, but it should be functioning. And I'm going to show you how to get started on that. So you'll show me the screenshot of your first level using the third-person controller. It may not be the playground that comes with the project, though. You have to have a new level. I'm going to show you how to do all of that. Okay, now, to get access to Unreal 5, should have this available on Canvas on our home page here. Everything should be available for you here. It's kind of nice getting through it all because I get to see if I'm missing anything for y'all. Credit. We'll go ahead and start publishing these as we go. Hey, look. Okay. Current. Final sprint, that is all working. Let's talk resources now. Notes from class, I'll cover that in a moment. Unreal, the site, there we go. Right here is where you can download Unreal 5. Well, sort of. You're gonna download the Unreal Games, Epic Games Launcher. That's what you're gonna download. Now, some of you might already have the Epic Games Launcher if you play, let's say Fortnite. I think it's Fortnite. Yeah, Fortnite's Unreal, I think. I forget. But if you play some of their games, you probably already have the game launcher. And if that's you, you really don't have to do much except sign in. Now, I'm going to recommend, if you're starting completely from scratch, you go to the website and you create an account. You may use any login that you will remember, right? You don't have to use your school login. I use the school login because I'm using a lot of these resources for when I'm teaching you all. But when I'm creating content for money, I'm not using my school resources. I'm using my personal or my professional email and accounts, right? So for now, I'm using the school login stuff because this is what I use for education. Now, if you don't plan to make games professionally and you're just doing games right now for school, maybe just keep it your school stuff so that you can compartmentalize it that way. It keeps it like a little easier, like remember everything. But if you want to make games for realsies and continue to explore, there's really no need for you to like associate it with your school stuff. There's no expectation or requirement even when you're in the classroom later to do that. So that's recommended. Now, go ahead and you can either click download or click get Unreal. And either will kind of get you to the same page, right? And what you have to do is you have to first download the Epic Games launcher, and then through the launcher, you will then install the version of Unreal. So click the download launcher, let it download, install it on your PC. Recommended PC over Mac. I can't support Mac. And also another thing is that if you build on a Mac, I believe I need a Mac to play it. So we'll figure out. No, we won't. You have to work on a PC. I think I told you guys that in the beginning, and now as I'm walking through it, there's really no way for me to grade either the project or the game that you build in Unreal without me acquiring a Mac, and I don't have access to a Mac. So please make sure that you are working off of a PC, and if you don't have a PC, gain access to the school resources. All right, so then you will download right here, or after you've downloaded, you will install it right here. Right here. Go ahead and install it to your PC, and once that is finished, go ahead and launch it, and we'll pick up from there. Okay, so once it's installed and you've launched the launcher, it will prompt you to log in to your Epic Games account. Now, that is the same login that you either just created or what you already had. Either is fine. But once you have logged in, you should see something like this. Now, actually, it probably doesn't look like this for you. It should probably look a little like this right here. Probably see something like that, right? Ooh, actually, you know what? Yeah, it should look a little like this. It might look a little bit different if you have a newer version, but this should be right. Now, one of the things that I kind of found I was a little confusing about this is because we engage with the library, but there's two libraries. We have the library and the library. Which library we're talking about? Well, when I have, depending on what I have selected, it actually changes the tabs that are up here, and it changes the window, in this case, like the store. If I click on this library on the left, what this is actually doing is it's showing me my games library, the library of games that I've purchased, which I'm not sure if it's just like taking a while to load or what, but I don't actually have any games there anyway. And then we click on the game engine, and this should there we go, should update, there we go, have this view. Now, we don't actually mess with these two up here. The store is to purchase games. The library is where your games are stored. I don't use this tool as a player. I use this tool as a developer, at least pretty much always. I mean, I only do it like once in a while to play with my nephew. I really don't play games in the Epic store. So I'm going to hide my game library. And what that does for me is that it just makes this the engine tool. And that kind of keeps things a little bit easier for me to like navigate this. You don't have to do that. It's something I do. And you can do that by going to the settings and then clicking hide game library to true. There is a newer version, so your new version might look a little bit different than mine, but this should all kind of behave the same nonetheless. Now what we want to do is we want to check out these top tabs right up here. Under samples is, samples of projects that you can like go and explore and check out some cool stuff. And these are really great for explorative learning. I highly recommend goofing around in these if you're bored, or definitely do it, when you've got some downtime, especially if you really want to do this for a living. These are cool projects that have some like elevated features that Unreal is really trying to kind of like push and market. Fab is the sort of like marketplace where you can purchase art or systems to put into your games that you're working on. I am not going to stop you from using any of those assets. My assignment is not pay for an A or pay to win. You know, I don't like that model. But sometimes people really want to kind of use a bundle or a package, and they would like that for their game. I won't tell you you can't. I won't tell you you can't. What you may not do, however, is if you do purchase a bundle from here, like an environment pack, you are not allowed to use their demo for your level. You have to build your own level. And I will actually show you how, because I'm going to give you a project next week that has art in it that will allow you to like use that, and you're not going to be able to. I'm going to show you the difference between using the demo and using their art, right? Okay, but we'll come back to that. Then the library. The library. Now yours probably looks a little different than mine because mine has stuff in it. I have a lot of assets. Stuff that I've either used in games I've made or projects I've made, and stuff that I've been using teaching demos. There's a Resident Neho, which we'll cover next week. But you probably won't have anything here. If you do, cool. But if you don't, that's normal. And it's okay if you don't see a bunch of stuff here. Now, you also probably don't see engine versions. You probably don't see anything here. So what you want to do is you want to click this little plus sign. And then when you have the grayed box of the version, do the little drop down and click which one you want to do. For us in the classroom, we have 5.4.4. That's the safe one. So that's the one that you'll want to install. If you install 5.3.3, you're still okay in my class because we're online. I will be able to open this with my home setup, or even on this computer. I'll just install it. It's no big deal. In the classroom, though, we don't have the ability to install new versions of anything. We can't update. We do it once a year, and it's usually during the summer, and I try to do it as close to fall as possible so we have the newest stuff when we start. So we basically are stuck with whatever version is in there until the rest of the academic year. Now, that also means, though, that if you build in a newer version at home and then expect to work on these things on campus, you won't be able to open your project if you created a newer version. We can only go forward in that. So you can create an older version, like you can create in 5.3 at home, come to campus and still be able to open it in 5.4. You will not be able to open it if you created something in 5.5 though. You can't go back in time. You can only go forward. Okay, please let me know if you have any questions about that. But once it's finished installing, come back and then we will, pause this, come back, and then we'll move forward. Next up, we are going to create a brand new project. So once you have it installed, go ahead and click launch. You can click it here or here. That's fine. And we're going to let it power up. Here's the thing. You might have noticed that my lag is happening. Now, once I have Unreal open, all resources start to get like slowed down a lot, especially on this computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to a version of this that will allow me to kind of teach you some stuff, but you're not going to see my face no more. But I will still be here, and you will still see my overlay and all that. But that will at least make it a little bit easier on the resources while Unreal chugs through all of this. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just kind of mosey on over to that. All right, so now that you've opened or clicked New Project, you should see this Unreal Project Browser window. On the left, we have a kind of hierarchy of template types, or basically project editor types. And usually at the very top, they're going to always have games, because games are going to take priority in just the development pipeline of Unreal. Now, I had done an Unreal Fellowship in Virtual Design, and that was so much fun, but very interesting. And that even though we were doing film and video events, they still recommended that we use the games template. So I'll just say that even in future development, even if you're doing architecture, even if you're doing simulations, stick with the games because their features are currently a bit more stable. At least for now. That might be different in about a year or two. So, depending on when you see this, that could change. Now, right now I have recent projects highlighted, and those are all right here from stuff that I've opened and had been talking about, but you probably won't see anything there unless you've been already, tinkering around with Unreal. So to make a new thing, like if you don't have anything to click here, which makes sense, what you want to do is you want to click on games, and then we're going to create a new project. Now, while I am not grading you on the name of your project, do name your project. I would consider this a kind of amateur move to just call things my project and untitled, and untitled 1, untitled 2, my project 2, my project 3, and so like this is a really good time to start practicing naming your projects. And you can call this DMA 225 after the class. You can call it Resident Neho and then your last name if you're going to go with that. But honestly, I'm going to be giving you materials and resources for that, so this first thing that you do could be totally brand new and totally just a start and a new interesting thing to play with. Okay, so it really doesn't matter what you name it, but name it something that's not my project. I'm going to call this DMA 225 _ my first Unreal demo. Oh, it's too many. Okay, my first demo. Okay, so this is the very first time that you would open something. Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to click create yet. You can send it to wherever you want it to live on your repository. Typically, you want to save it to documents, but it's okay if you save it somewhere else. It's just that saving files to the C drive and under your documents typically works a bit faster. And these projects do get pretty gnarly and pretty big, so you do want to kind of pay attention to some of that file management stuff. So make sure that it's going somewhere that you'll find it. And then you also want to make sure that you click third person. Now, if you're goofing around for funsies, it's okay to play with some of these other things, but for our purposes, for our assignment, I want you to make sure that you are clicking third person. So if you really want to play with the first person toys and the top down stuff, click that, play with it, then come back here when you get to this stage, click third person, and then continue. So I'm going to click create now, and now Unreal is going to take a few moments processing and opening. I'll say that the first time you open a thing, it usually takes the longest here, but once it goes through all this little chugging, it gets easier. So we're just going to let it think while it opens. Okay, so this part right here, this part takes a second. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so hopefully your screen looks very similar to mine. If it doesn't, that is actually okay, because it turns out that most of the editor settings are very modular and very editable. So if they don't look anything like mine, it's actually okay. I'm going to show you how we can set this up to be sort of a functioning space. But before we go into all these tabs and all these things and buttons and clicky things up here, I want to show you how to kind of navigate within the viewport setting here. This 3D viewport. First off, if you left mouse click on anything here, you can start to select objects through the camera. And if I hold down Alt while I left mouse click and drag, oh, that's weird that my input's not working. Let me see why that's happening. Come on. Oh, looks like it's working now. Okay. While I left mouse click and drag, right, like hit Alt, left mouse click and drag, I can orbit around objects. Now, if I have something selected, like I'm going to click this little blue box right here, I'm going to hit the letter F as in Frank, and it will frame that object. And it's like zooms in, and now I can orbit around it. Super friendly stuff. In the outliner on the top right corner right here, this guy should say outliner. This is a list of everything that is in the current level map. If you double click it, you should like frame it. It'll frame as if you were clicking it and hitting F. So this is a great way to kind of get back to orienting yourself in the project. If you accidentally kind of, I don't know, oops-a-daisy off of the viewport and you're like, how do I get up there? And I'm like, I don't know where anything is. I don't know. How do I, this is, how do I, that sucks. So, you could double click an object or just hit F and it'll frame it for you, and you kind of like reorients you into the level. Okay, so when you hold down Alt and you left mouse click and drag, you orbit. You can left mouse click and drag and orbit, but it orbits sort of pivoted to the camera, like you're looking left and right where you're standing. We're holding down Alt, you'll orbit around whatever you have selected. So that's a very handy tool to like figure out how to navigate the space. If I scroll, my middle mouse scroll, I'll go zoom in and out. And if I hold Alt, I'll kind of slow how quickly I zoom in and out, so you can get a little bit more control on that. And if I right mouse click and drag, I will zoom in and out. Or I guess it's technically a dolly. I'm technically moving the camera in and out. I'm not using a zoom feature, right? So, this is a way for us to kind of like navigate the space and orbit around, and this is how we're going to start like building environments. Now, this first level that's here is actually just a playable demo of the third-person controller. To play what's currently set up in this level, you at the very top here, you're going to click the play button, and it's going to drop us in where we have a player controller, right? First-person controller, or third-person controller. And so now, oh, there's still a little bit of a lag. Oh dear, maybe it'll catch up. It's okay. I can now navigate the space, and my player can run, and I can jump, and I can kind of play around with this 3D environment. We are going to make our own 3D environment using some simple tools, but like to start you off, I want you just playing with this third-person controller, and I want you playing around with making a playable space for her. I believe this is Quinn, the mannequin. I think they have names. You've got Manny and Quinn. Manny is the male version of the mannequin, and Quinn is the female. Actually, I don't really think they're gendered, like they're robots, but, they're presenting as male and female, so we'll go with that. Okay, so play with that for a little bit, see if you can get a handle for the controls, and then we'll come back and keep going. Next up, let's talk a little bit about the different kind of things going on in this area, okay, like the different tabs and stuff. Well, we know that the outliner is a hierarchical list of everything that is currently in the world or in the level, right? You can organize them with like folders here that like kind of work as like sectioning off types of whole areas, and you can kind of toggle them on and off, and that's like helpful when you're organizing your level. And these levels can get pretty beefy pretty quickly, just like how easy it is to populate them. And so this is like a nice way to kind of keep things organized for you right up here. So just be mindful of that. You can make little folders and tuck some stuff inside of it, and now on the bottom right here, the details, depending on what you have selected, these things change, right? The details tab is sort of like the inspector tab in Unity, if you're familiar with that. But or the properties tab in like Substance Painter or whatever you're kind of working in, when you have something selected or you're working on something, you have all of these sort of properties that have to do with whatever it is you've got selected. In this case, it's called the details tab. A lot of the magic happens here. This is where we can, set its location, its XYZ location, its rotation, its scale. You can change the material of it to something else. I'm going to hit F and like kind of zoom in on this cube, for example. If I wanted to change the material, you can click this little drop down right here, and should pop up a list of different materials you can apply to it. You can make your own materials if you like, but I'll show you how to like set up some of that stuff. It's really not like very difficult, but it is considerable amount of work making them all, and you don't really have to do any of that with some of the stuff I'm going to give you for your final, but I'll still show you anyway. All right, so let's kind of scroll on down. You get some advanced stuff here. You can edit, I believe, some physics type stuff here, like if you want to like make it like use its collision. Anyway, there's a lot kind of going on that is happening under the hood here. You don't need to go into this too much. We'll cover some of this like introductory stuff as we go, but for now, this is just what the details tab is. You select a thing and it changes based off of what you have selected, like the different things that you can actually edit in this thing. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to show you a few things that I pretty much always have docked whenever I'm editing. This is my preferred way to work. I won't make you do that. You can do whatever you want, but I usually need to have access to stuff in the content drawer. Now the content drawer on the bottom left corner of the screen, and I mean, it kind of looks like you can't see the content drawer in the recording. Let me see what's happening here. If I can fix this. There we go. There we go. Okay, there we go. Bottom left corner of the screen right here. There's the content drawer. This guy, content drawer, is the folder that holds all of the assets in the project. Many of you have played games where different levels have different stuff, right? So different scenes that you're in will have different art and different systems. And so what you want to do here, this is where you keep everything that you put in the whole game or the whole project. And in the outliner is what you put just in the current level, right? And I'm going to go ahead and move my keyboard overlay up a little bit, just so it's kind of out of the way here. Now the thing is though, is that I am almost always reaching for things in the project when I'm building, especially during like world building. Like I'm always kind of going in here. I would really like it if I could dock this in the layout of my editor. So dock in layout is what I'm going to click. Now it is a little confusing because I actually currently have two contents drawers open. I'm going to click off of it now and it's going to go away. And there's the content browser right here. Now it might have docked it immediately for you, or you might have seen a pop-up that looks like this. And this means that you get to dock it wherever you want. Now, to dock something, you actually want to click and drag on this little tab part of the window and select where you would like it to go. And Unreal is going to try its best to try to help you out. Like, what did you want it? Where did you want it to go? I pretty much always like it down here. And this is maybe showing my age a little bit, but this is where it always used to live in its default setting when Unreal, you know, the original Unreals and the UDKs and the Unreal dev kits were coming out back in my day. So I'm gonna actually leave this here for now, okay? Next up is the adding and placing of stuff and actors. In Unreal, an actor is pretty much anything that you wanted it to be in a way. Much like objects are both systems and 3D models and things in Unity, everything is an actor in Unreal. So sometimes we want to place actors that are part of the project's like default settings, like, you know, character controllers or simple cubes or lights and other such, you know, things to play with. So I'm going to actually go over here where this little drop down is, and this is where you can do like add actors. These are where you can do it. However, I would really like it if I could dock this to my viewport and have access to this as needed. Well, to do that, we actually have to go to Window, and then we're going to scroll down to the Place Actors window, and we're just going to click that True. Now, it remembered my previous setting. That's usually where I like to dock it. For you, it might have just popped out a window, right? And it's the very same sort of function with the content browser. It wants you to select the tab and then put it somewhere. I'm going to put it on the left, just like it was kind of a little bit different than how it was before. And now I've got a Place Actors dock that I can kind of reach in here. And we're going to be playing with some of those. Now I am also noticing that I'm getting some lag, so I'm going to save my stuff and see if I can figure out why my resources are chugging so hard. All right, be right back. Okay, so the assignment or the check-in that I'm requiring of you to have by next week, right, is to have this thing open and have you guys playing with it by then. And what I want you to do is I want you to go to File, and we're going to create a new level. In this new level, I would like for you to pick Unreal, empty level. It might be tempting to want to use the open world and the open world without light and the basic and all that, but I want to show you how to build up the barest minimum to kind of get these things working so you aren't relying on things that are already in here. And it's really not too hard. So let's click on empty level, click create, and now we have an empty level, but I also haven't saved anything so far. So here's the thing though, is that by default, you're in something called the content folder. That is what we would call a root folder. It's the highest level of folder that you can get to, and many people start saving things in the root folder. This is poor practice. Do not do this. while I do not necessarily micromanage how you should be organizing your projects, I'm happy to talk about ways to do that as we progress playing with this. I'm going to at least recommend that you make one folder and then name it something that you can put the things that you care about within it, and then start organizing within that. All right, at least while you get used to this, working in this kind of workflow. So to make a new folder, right click in the content browser. When you have the content folder selected, right click, then go to new folder, and we're going to name it. You can name it your name. I'm going to name it demo materials. No, better not say materials, because that's kind of a thing. Demo assets. Just call them assets, because all the stuff I'm going to make is going to be in the demo assets thing. So I'm going to go ahead and double click that. And this is actually where I'm going to save my scene. So I'm going to go to File, Save Current Level. If you click As or Regular Level, As will give you a prompt to rename it or to name it something else and have a copy of it. And Saving Current will just save as is whatever you've currently named it. But since we haven't named it anything yet, both of these will actually do the same at this stage. So I'm going to click Save Level. I'm going to go to my demo assets, and I'm going to click demo map. Click Save. Okay, and there it is. There's the demo map. Now, I'm going to show you a few things. I'm going to right click on the demo map, and I'm just going to show you view, like show in Explorer, right? And what it's going to do is it's going to pop up my Windows Explorer and show me the asset as it lives in my project. So if I go to all the way up here where, oh, there's my DMA 225, my first demo folder. If I'm going to ask you for a project, you have to give me this whole folder, everything that's inside of it. Not select everything here. I mean, zip this folder up right here and give me that. I'll show you how to do that in a future class, but this is how you navigate to that space, right? Double click it, and you'll notice, oh, we've got a bunch of folders. We've got a config and a content folder. And you also have the Unreal project file. This is confusing for some students because right here, students will give me this file thinking they're giving me the project. And it's reasonably confusing because if you double click this when you're outside of Unreal, it'll open it and open this project for you in Unreal. But this little icon here, this little executable, this is like the start or the starter of your car. And I like, hey, I need you to bring your car to me. And you accidentally giving me just the starter or just the key. That's all you gave me. And that's not the car. I need the whole thing. So yes, when you use this, when you double click it, it will open the project, but it is not the project. So don't get confused about that. Now I'm going to go to the content folder, and you're going to see now, oh goodness, I've got a series of folders here that look really similar to the folders that I have here. I've got characters, collections, demo assets, the thing I made, there's the map, and some developer stuff and more things like this. Oh, starter content. That looks like this starter content. They actually kind of look the same. Now, if you have any experience in working some other engines, I mean, some of you might have experience in Unity. I really need to differentiate some differences here because if you expect this to operate the same, you're going to be very sad. Sad in the case that Unreal is not as friendly with their assets and their projects the way Unity is, right? So first off, if you're familiar with Unity, the game engine, when you bring in an asset, really all you have to do is move it over to their assets folder, and you can bring over stuff. Like you could literally just bring in a 3D model and it would import into the project. And that FBX or OBJ or whatever file type was here remains that file type. And then you could just, I don't know, copy it out of there and bring it into Blender or whatever. But you kind of get my point. It operates like a standard folder and it just becomes part of the project, which is delightful. But you'll notice that if I were to click on here, I went to starter content and props. Let me go down to props just to kind of make my point. I click on props. There's a bunch of 3D modeled assets right here. This is really nice. Like, oh, there's a window frame and some stairs and some things to play with. Yay. I love that for us. But when I come over here to the props folder, these are not FBXs. They're U assets. And it turns out everything becomes a U asset. Materials and 3D assets, 3D objects, they're also U assets. Everything is a U asset. So Unreal converts any file you have here to an Unreal asset file type, making it unusable in other software. So do not import something into a project and then expect you to be able to have access to that original file type in that project. Don't do it. And it also doesn't work to move stuff over and bring them over into the project, into these folders, and then they just show up here. You actually have to import them into the engine. Now that is a very distinct difference between the two, and I actually like to pinpoint it because if you're used to operating the other way, you will be very sad to not have access to all of your source files or whatever file types that you might need to edit or something in a different tool. All right. Okay, now I digress. How do I make this look not like that and look better? Well, I'm actually going to go up to Window and I'm going to bring up something called the Light Mixer. Environment Light Mixer. And in here is really something for you guys to play with, but to get this functioning how you need it to, just go create Skylight, create Atmosphere Light, create Atmosphere, create Volumetric Clouds, and create Fog. And now you have create Fog. Thank you. And now you have the basics of lighting in this space. Now, all levels look like this, so if you would actually like to play with some of the lighting of these things, you certainly may. You can start to play around with what you want this to look like by playing with some of the colors. I am not going to require you to do that for here, but this is a toy that I like to show people so that they're not trying to copy another scene and just or operate in perfect black, and you really don't need to be troubling yourself too much with staging the background and art of something like this. So this is just the fastest way to get everything you need in here, and also, by the way, it's fun to play with light settings and color and just to kind of goof around. All right, but I'm not going to really do a whole lot. I'm just going to turn all those on and then close the mixer. And now I want to bring in some assets. Now, I'm going to give you a bundle next time I see you of environment assets and environment art. But for this little project, this little setup to show me that you've managed to get this far, I'd like for you to go to either starter content or level prototyping. And in here, we've got some simple meshes that you can play with. I think you're going to find more fun stuff, though, in starter content and architecture particularly. Now, what we have here is something called a modular environment kit bash, which is a set of 3D models that snap together with each other. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the floor and drag the floor on into the scene. It's in there now. I can hit F as in Frank to frame it, and now I can rotate around it. Now, while I've got this this floor 400 by 400 set, I'm going to go to its general tab here in the details, and I'm going to set its location to 0, 0, 0. And then I'm going to hit F again, and it navigated to the object. And you'll notice that everything in the corner is at 0, 0, 0. Now, it's a good habit to get into to always start at 0. It's not really the end of the world if it's not, but at least this way, when you bring something to 0 and you go to that location, you know that it's sort of an anchor point of your entire environment. Now, what if you're I want to scale this, make it bigger, or rotate it? Well, I'm going to show you something called transforms, which are tools that we use to actually make objects bigger, move them, rotate them, turn them around, and tumble them. And the hotkeys for that are W for move, E for rotate, and R for scale. W-E-R. Now, I don't think I'm going to actually scale up the floor because our little check-in doesn't really require that of us. But if I wanted to put in an object, right, a simple shape, I'm going to click Shapes in my Place Actors. I'm going to bring in a cube. And this is approximately 1 meter. Oh, I'm probably going to have to make it bigger. 1 meter. I can move it. So W for move. The gizmo kind of tells me everything. The gizmo, by the way, is the name that we call this interactive icon that usually has a kind of orientation to the axes, in this case X, Y, and Z. And for the move, like the arrow, if I were to hover over this arrow, this one, it'll only move up and down. It'll only move along the Z. If I use the red, it'll only move along the X. If I use the green, it'll only move along the Y axis. And I can also see what axes I'm actually engaging with on the bottom left corner of the screen. If I want to move this cube on 2 axes at once, but not all 3, I can hover over the little box in between the two, and you'll notice that both of those arrows light up, like both of them. And now I can move it up and down and left and right, but it won't move at all on the Y, moving closer to my camera. And so I can do it on either of those here. I can also move it, but it won't go up and down. I can go left and right and forward and back, but not up and down. If you want to move it uniformly or on all 3 axes, click on the center part, and what it will do is it'll move on all 3 axes. You can even see on the bottom right corner of the screen the location numbers, all X, Y, and Z numbers are changing. It's actually doing it oriented to the camera, so depending on how you've got your camera set is really where it's going to move it to. I don't think I've ever used this for the move tool. I'm pretty much always interacting with 1 or 2 axes at once, not all 3, because like if it's just chaos, then I don't have a lot of order. But, you know, it's not wrong if you do this. I just don't think I typically really ever do. All right, I'm going to Control Z and drop that back down to what it was, kind of. And now I'm going to show you the rotation tool. So hit E for your hotkey to rotate, and this will operate very much the same way that the move tool does, except you got these little circles. This will rotate along an axis. Control Z, Control Z. And I also don't really engage with a kind of uniform rotation. I pretty much always toggle just one or the other. And I don't know that this is really giving you the option to be able to do 2 at once, which I never do. Even if it did have the option, I don't think I would want that. If you want to kind of provide a weird chaos to an environment where you want them to feel scattered, there are physics tools and physics options that you can use to kind of drop things to feel a little bit more chaotic, like boulders and rocks and stuff. We're not going to really talk about that in this class, but they do exist. They are out there. Okay, and then finally, the scale tool. And the scale tool is the fancy pants computer science way of saying make bigger or smaller. And it will also operate with a gizmo, either at 1 axis or 2 axes at a time. And like you kind of can't tell that that's what's happening, that it's actually being operating on 2 axes. I'm going to squeeze it a little smaller so you can see that when it grows, it only grows on the 2, not the 3rd. Come here. There we go. Yep, it stays the same on the 1 axis. And this is maybe one time where scaling it uniformly actually does kind of make sense. And to do that, you just click on the middle cube of the dongle, and it'll hold, or the gizmo, and it will completely scale up and down. You could also type in a scale amount here if I don't want this to be 1, but I want it approximately half its size on all 3 axes. I could put 0.5, tab 0.5, tab 0.5. And now I've got a cube. 4 of these cubes would equal 1 as it was set before. And so that's how we can scale up or down. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And now I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to scale out my floor to be just a little bit bigger so that I can play around with having some space in here. Or you know what, better yet, I'm going to use a couple of floors and stagger them out here and actually kind of snap them to the other floor here so that we're working with a modular set. It's okay though if you would rather just scale it up. I wouldn't be mad at you for that. But I'm getting into the habit of using a modular set because that's the kind of tool that I'll be giving you next week. We'll start with that. Okay, so I put 2 and 2 together. Looks pretty good. Now, what if we want this to not be like white? I'd like to have some color here. Well, what it needs is a material. So select the asset that you would like to apply a material to, and then in the Details tab, scroll on down to where you see Materials, and we can actually apply a different material. Now, the project has some basic materials that you can absolutely play with, like, this has got like a brick material. We can apply that here, and it's fine. Let's see what that looks like. Beautiful. You can have a brick floor if you want. Maybe there's something else in here we can play with, like a brick clay, old brick clay. Ew, that's pretty. Now, the reason that something like this, I think, you want to actually use tiled sequences for, or placement of this, where you have two of these, is because, at least at the moment, without you really knowing how to yet, if you scale these up, so will also the material, right? So like the material will also stretch with it. And for now, I don't really want that to do that. And while there are ways to apply that kind of feature to a floor or to a material here where we'll tile, we're not really going to cover all of that in this first lesson. So I'm going to just pick a floor that I like. And I really like this tile. I think that's the one I'm going to stick with for now. And then I'm going to let this finish thinking, apparently. Oh, no, I did finish thinking. That is it. And then I'm going to drag and drop a player character to run around it. Yep. All right, that'll be next. Okay. All right, to add a player character, which is, first, like, a actual player character for you, the player, to drop in here and actually walk around with, we're going to want to add a player start. Now, ordinarily, if this did not have sort of the third person template set up here, we would have to actually create a player start and create a player controller blueprint, but this already has it set up for us. So all we have to do is just tell the level to add a starting location for where you want your player to be able to pop in. And you'll notice right away that that floor that I just made is actually not very big. Now I am like seriously cool about not requiring you to do a lot of art here, so you certainly may actually stagger or like scale these out to be a size you want and not worry about the material. But I kind of like things looking good, so I'm gonna actually show you how I would do it that way, but it won't actually make your homework a poorer grade if these are all stretched out or you've got flat colors on things. Like I'm not going to really care about that too much, but I still like to show you how to do it, right? Okay, so I've applied a few things here, and you might have noticed that when you dropped in the player character here, that capsule's actually kind of big. Like that's not a lot of room to run around. So what I'd like for you to do is to just drop in a player controller and start placing some floor around here for your player to interact with. Right? Something for them to walk around in, and you'll notice that it doesn't take very long for them to already reach the end of the world where they fall down forever. Okay, I'll go ahead and exit out of that. I do not have a minimum requirement for you for your for this first assignment. My minimum requirement is that you've accessed Unreal, you've installed it, you've gone through all that processes, and you are now interacting and starting to put some stuff together. What you make here for your next check-in with me does not have to be what you make for your final. It can be if you'd like. So if you're starting to think about like what kind of environment you would like to build, you may. And many of us are kind of excited. Like I'm actually going to save this really quick and pop out of this. Some of you are excited about being able to use some materials or resources that are available on like Fab, right? So the Fab library, I just typed in Fab, and in here you could actually look for stuff to bring in. I think this is my library. I'm going to go to Discover. I'm going to go to Unreal. Excuse me. And I'm going to look at some stuff in here. You might find some art that you really want to use, but most of this costs money. Like, dang, that's actually a lot of money. Let's see if there's anything in here that's like free price. Free. Show me free art. Oh, some materials, some landscape materials. There's water physics. That's fun. Ooh, fire packs. Optimal gas station. You can grab a gas station and make a little gas station scene. You're more than welcome to grab some of these things and use them for your world or for your level if you'd like to play with it. Just so that you know what I will be giving you, I have purchased, this was for this class, not just our class specifically, but for like DMA 225. I got us the modular school set. This guy right here, I think. Yeah, this looks right. I think this is right. Yeah, I got a modular school. And so I have these assets for you, and you can use them if you'd like and create a little environment. I actually mapped out the end building for our project because I thought it was funny. But yeah, so you'll be getting access to this if you would like to use this kit. You will have it, and I will show you how to use it. It's pretty much the same as I was showing you the architecture assets. But we're just kind of clicking and dragging and bringing stuff in to play with. If this is something that you were excited to use, then you really don't need to grab anything else. You may use the starter assets. You really are not required to use any kind of particular art, but I'll be giving you this. But by all means, go and discover. Like, check out what options they have. They have some free stuff. Some of it's kind of affordable, but I don't want you to have to pay anything for this. I just don't think you should have to. So I'm going to click on environments, and I'm going to click price free, and yeah, and see if there's anything in here that you're like, ooh, I want to use that. Go for it. That is fine. That's totally fine. Hey, the subway train is free right now. That's kind of cool. It's pretty. Yeah. What you'll have to do, if there's anything here, you know, maybe what I can do is I can show you really quick how to actually bring one of these into a project. Let me grab one that if you guys were here, I'd be like, which ones do you want? Which one would you like to see? I am going to grab this. Oh, the cigar room looks cool. I want to do that one. It's probably not great. Like, usually free art is a little rough, but this is the one I'm going to do. So log into your Unreal account information to Fab. Like, log into it. And then go to it, and if it's free, it'll say add to my library. If it's not, I think it says add to cart, and you have to go through the payment of all that, but I'm going to just click add to library. Once it's done that, click view in launcher, and then when you open it up in your launcher, it should come up down here. Now let's hopefully it did it. There's a cigar. Well, close that out. View in launcher. Yeah. Cigar room. I'm actually really glad that I'm showing you this because I found that this error happens. Like, it's not a very perfect, seamless process. I actually had to refresh it. And I have had students say that they had to log out and log back in for their stuff to start showing up. And I think that that was a thing in the classroom. So hopefully it won't take that long, but here's where you can actually add it to. So if I wanted to add this to like the project I was just editing, the my first DMA 225, my first demo, I would click on the project like this, and then I click add to project. And then once this is finished, when it's done, when you open this up, all of these art assets will already be in your project. So that's how you can go and add some art into this and use it. Now, in our 3D track, I actually show you how to bring in your own custom work in here. So the stuff that you are making in Maya and Blender and ZBrush, and how to bring them in. That is covered, oops, Daisy. That is covered starting DMA 217, sometimes 16 if we have enough, but DMA 217, we really focus on getting them into Unreal. And then 218 is the how to make stuff look better in Unreal and do cool things in Unreal. And I mean, that's kind of the pipeline for it. So that's how you would get it in. And so happy goofing off and finding fun stuff to play with for what will eventually be your final, or at the very least, a toy for you to play with, because this actually turns out to be a lot of fun. Okay, everyone, I hope that that is enough to get you excited, but not so much to totally burn you out. And when I see you, hopefully not tomorrow or later today, I will be showing you the kit that I'm offering you and the example final that I have built for you. And then we're going to get started on starting to set up some Tyrant AI and triggers. It's going to be lots of fun.